I'm launching up the YouTube live. FYI.
Best behavior.
Hey, you were the one in the closet earlier. Dropping language on everybody.
That's fair.
We're coming into that conversation
I know.
without context. That's fun.
Oh, well.
For the 8 views we get per week.
Hillary, it looks like we got James Rodemeyer from Bishop. He'll be dealing with the Hughes plat items.
Long time no see.
How you doing?
Good.
Nothing good.
Dana Ricardo?
Yeah,
Yeah. He's done.
did they announce it?
No.
I'm on data.
Stinks. Yeah, if we'll do anything.
Anything? I'm at least getting that. I'm not on Wi-Fi.
For fun or what?
Maybe.
Seems like I'm not super into it.
I was trying to find.
I've given up on ever having Wi-Fi at home anymore. So,
We switched to Metro.
did you? We don't have it.
Yeah,
We don't have access to it at our house yet.
It was such a more of our yard over the summer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the part. I'm
But
like,
to do
crotchety
that,
the old man coming to my yard. So I'm just waiting for them to tear it up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go, you know,
It is
but
very odd.
No, sorry. What was it?
It's a
we've
weird.
been dealing for like 3 or 4 days now. We're essentially like, it'll work for about 30 minutes and then I'll go out for 10 minutes.
I keep seeing that on Facebook.
yeah, like
Really keeps-
some of the teams that were like a parent or you know.
I can imagine you go in there and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
I spent
Once we got it.
billions of dollars.
Our yard,
You did.
it looks like.
Yeah.
They
Makes
dumped a lot.
absolutely.
They do that for everybody, right? Or is it only if you subscribe to it?
So they dug up everybody's yard.
Yeah.
Like, I did not focus on
And
that.
then when they put it in to connect it from the box to your house,
Like,
they-
and then I kind of stayed in with it.
We got Howard right
that's the
behind
one
me.
that's not.
I'm not going to Austin this year.
Yeah.
First time in 3 years.
We were at our old place, CenturyLink did that, when they did it, they had
I
to go
love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
all the way around the back.
my favorite.
And for the rest of the time we lived there was like a dip. And like, I was just waiting for somebody's ankle to be broken or, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't work out well. So.
Yeah.
All the technology wise,
Howard, I'm Carson. Nice to meet you as well. You too.
yeah, it's been a while.
Welcome back, man. How's it going?
Casey didn't watch the
Oh,
Everybody ready?
So.
I will now call to order the September 23rd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The time is 5:46 PM. Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Eaton,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Steiger. Samuelson,
Here.
Forrest,
Here.
Hinders, Reagan.
Here. Item number 3 is the approval of tonight's agenda. Any changes to the agenda for this evening? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda.
Forced motions.
Thompson seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 4 is the approval of the August 26th, 2024 minutes from our commission meeting. Any changes to the August 26th minutes? Nothing, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve the August 26th, 2024 minutes.
Thompson second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. I'd like to welcome all the guests that have joined us here in person at City Hall and on the Zoom tonight. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda here in person? and anyone on Zoom? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to item number 6, which is a public hearing and recommendation on a zoning amendment related to the establishment of a zoning district related to technology industry uses. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 5:47 PM. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
Nope, but Luke will.
Oh.
Thanks. Yes, so apologies, I was not at your last meeting where you guys had a little bit of a discussion on this. But with all the expansion the city's doing to the southwest, our infrastructure investment down there, we know that data centers and technology uses are a big growing industry these days. And so we want to make sure our zoning ordinance has some language in there that incorporates that. Our current zoning had some availability for us to make some interpretations that we felt like we could have included it. But we have had some companies that we've talked to over the last couple of years express that really places that want to when data centers want to locate, they want to see some very specific language that talks about it rather than relying on staff interpretation of things. So that really is what necessitated this. Council requested that we initiate it at their August 15th meeting. You all had your discussion in late August. And then we've crafted this ordinance that's before you today. It's not quite an ordinance format, but it does have kind of all the details that we would have in it laid out in pages 5 through 6 of your agenda, or 2 through 6, apology. I would note that we had, like I said, we've gotten some feedback from some companies on this, and they have taken a look at the language as well and given us some feedback that we've incorporated into what it was finally presented into your packet today. And then there were some things I actually cleaned up this afternoon as far as some typos and things. So if you pull it open now, if you printed it before, what's in there now is just a little bit different. And I'll run through all that. But essentially what we're looking at doing is creating a new district. We've just simply termed it the M2 district. And really it's just focused on anything in the M1 district, but then also data centers and the associated accessory uses with those. And I guess the other principal use that we added was an electrical substation. As we've learned more about data centers, it's become apparent that electrical substations are kind of key critical components of a data center, even though that's not the data center itself. So we have that as permitted, principal permitted uses, accessory uses, pretty much everything in the M1 district, then including concrete plants for the data center construction, some different energy generation facilities, either wind or solar, if those were used, water towers, and then storage facilities for energy that might be generated, whether that's coming from the grid or things that are generated on site. That energy storage is really important for a data center's use, to be able to regulate and make sure that they're able to continually operate if there's situations of surges in power or lack of power. So those are the principal and permitted and accessory uses. I did note in the staff report, and this is a bit of a change, probably the thing we discussed the most with some folks was height restrictions. And we'd originally said that any accessory use over 65 feet would require a special use permit. And some of the concerns with that were, again, those water towers and the substation and its the towers for utilities, like those are kind of necessary things as part of a data center. And so having those be conditioned to a special use and an additional potential for them to be denied while a data center site plan might have already been approved was tricky in talking through that. So where we landed was that we would exempt those from the special use requirement if they were taller than 65 feet. We would still obviously have our site plan review of that and approval. It would just get all approved as one thing with the data center if it came through. Any questions so far? I'm just kind of going through this in order, so.
Would a utility tower, would that be like an antenna looking thing?
Or really the power poles for that are bringing power line into a substation, so.
So not a big old antenna.
A giant steel pole. Basically.
Yes?
Yeah, I would not say that a like cell tower would meet that same, in my opinion, would not meet a utility tower. Utility tower to me would be related to the power utility. I can't think of any other thing that would be considered a utility tower.
And Luke, would the wind turbines also be limited to the 65 foot?
Those would, I believe, have to go through the special use permit.
Okay,
Because we exempted towers, for the substation, water tower, and I guess we said other utility towers. I don't know that there's really a differentiation between the two.
okay, so they could be greater than that, 65 foot.
Wind turbine,
Yeah,
but we'd have to approve it via special use permit.
through special use.
Yep.
And
And really, the main thing with our special use permits are making sure that a large tower, in the event that it ceased being a large tower and fell over, it doesn't negatively impact a neighboring property. Any other questions on heights? We did put in there that those towers under maximum height, that they are required to meet the special use requirements for towers identified in the chapter 175H, which is our special use. So we're still requiring them to meet those requirements, but not have to go through the Board of Adjustment process. So that's a little unique. Bulk regulations in your staff report. We had originally settled on a 40-acre minimum lot size. Came back around to that maybe being a bit restrictive based on what types of and sizes of data centers might end up wanting to locate. So we went back to our original draft, had a 10,000 square foot lot minimum. And then 100-foot lot width, 50-foot front yard and rear yard setbacks, and 25-foot side yard setbacks. So that lines up pretty well with our other industrial districts. It would allow any M1 district use could come in there at 10,000 square feet. And then the kind of smallest data center lot you would have would be that 10,000 square feet. One of the reasons for that lot size is if you look at number 7 under bulk regulations, we have a paragraph called data center complex on a single lot. So we were trying to understand what would happen if a data center complex located on one big lot, a bunch of buildings, right? And how would we incorporate that? The converse to that would be a bunch of small 10,000 square foot lots that each had their own building on them that had to meet their own setbacks and frontage and all those requirements. So. Any questions on lot sizes, bulk regulations?
Do you have anywhere in mind, and it might be cart before the horse or whatever, but for this M2, like, is it all south and southwest?
Yeah, and so it would be anything, we have to zone obviously according to our comprehensive plan, and it would be our industrial comp plan areas. Elliot, you pulling that up on map? It's primarily our kind of southwest expansion annexation corridor area, around Michael Foods and the current Mid-Am electrical substation down there, are really kind of the two areas. Elliot, if he gets a chance, can pull it up on the map.
Can I ask a couple?
Yeah.
And we're used to Microsoft and you got Google over in Council
Mhm.
Bluffs. What companies build small data centers? I guess I'm not familiar with that. Does anybody actually put up a 10,000 lot?
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think anyone's ever gonna actually use that 10,000 square foot. It's more how do you build out and phase out your data center, right? Like the Microsoft ones that are near us, they're all exist on one lot with all the buildings on it. If you look at Facebook up on Altoona, each data center building is its own separate piece of the puzzle that creates the whole Facebook campus. So that's more what we're trying to do rather than one business saying, this is mine at 10,000 square feet, right? It's more, hey, maybe I own 800 acres and I'm gonna chunk that up into individual pieces as it builds out. So.
And
Last week or month, we talked about. When we talked about this, somebody pulled up pictures of what, like, maybe it was Facebook where it was all spaced out and scattered, and then there was some that were all nice in a row. What did we land on with that? Do you remember, Elliot?
I mean, my point in making that comparison was how there might be bulk regulation things or open space requirements that Facebook had that caused them to not use their land efficiently, and that we should try to avoid that type of thing. I think with our open space requirement in our district, we just kept it at 20%.
Yeah, it's just
right?
the M1, same as M1,
Yeah,
which is
so
the lease.
that would allow someone devising a site plan for a data center to more match the gridded one that I used as contrast. Basically.
So cause Luke was just talking about if it was chunked out individual parcels, I just didn't want it to look, I guess, more like that Facebook one that was all spaced out.
Sure, and the important thing to understand about like the Facebook data center or the Microsoft one is those are big pieces of land, right? So the Facebook one, you could put a football field probably in certain areas of that campus and barely have any. We want to avoid that type of situation. So keeping the bulk regulations from M1 still allows us to accomplish that. Again, like zoning sets minimums. We can talk about maximums if we want. That's Pandora's box. We thought the M1 bulk regs were appropriate.
Did you have another question, George?
yeah, it's an outlier, but maybe it is. I don't think it is actually. How's this address? Now they're starting to talk about having self-contained nuclear reactors to provide energy to.
I had not heard that.
How does this play into this regulation?
It does not.
Well, it's not holding energy and something in a battery and.
Yeah, that was more like,
Wind power stored in a battery.
yeah,
or something
yeah,
like that.
obviously those, sustainable energy sources need to have some kind of storage thing to regulate the ebbs and flows of its generation, right? In addition to that, just the data center itself needs to have some assurances that the power is always going to be there, right? They can't have a tornado come through and knock out power lines and then have their thing go off, right? So they're going to have a bank of batteries there that's always there to provide a certain amount of time for them to then get generators up and running so that they can then provide the power they need for things, right? So it's a stability factor as much as it is storing maybe what was generated from a more intermittent source. I had not heard anything regarding nuclear generation.
So, like the nuclear reactor on site.
Like a
But that's serious.
aircraft carrier type deal.
Well, they just spoke about 3 Mile Island. And I think that's the idea, is to fund data center or the power data centers. And then.
We put something in there to not allow that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we would definitely want to have a lot of control over that.
That would be a regulation. That would
I
be
think
taken
the
at
federal
federal
nuclear
level.
regulatory body.
Yeah, I feel like there's gonna be.
Really want to step in there.
Well, Norwalk zoning says it's allowed, so.
I don't think we fit any criteria.
Anyway, FYI.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can see if there's anything we need to add in there as far as, hey,
Yeah.
I guess I would probably say that
Say no to that
I feel
one.
real comfortable pushing. That's a special use because it's not typical of a data center, but maybe we need to add something special in there. I'll get Jim's opinion on that.
Very forward thinking.
It is. Jumping down into some of the other details, fencing for a data center, one of the things that we realized pretty quickly at looking at sites around the metro, and then talking with different groups is, these are high security facilities. They are trying to really control access to them. So we needed to write some specific language about fencing that lets it exceed what our current code is. Our current code would say you can do a 6-foot fence max anywhere. If you have like ball fields and stuff, you can do like a backstop, obviously, and go higher than that. But for the most part, you're a 6-foot max for a border fence. So
Industrial.
yeah, 8 in industrial. Thank you, Elliot. So here it sets a maximum height of 12 foot. We do require setback off of the front yard to be 50 foot. That's very similar to how fences are anywhere. Like your maximum height is always at your front setback line. So even at your house, you can't have a 6-foot fence in your front yard, but behind your front yard, you can. No setback on the rear and side yards, similar to any other fence scenario. It can be on the property line. Requiring that the way this works, if you're reading 8C, it says that the fence shall be a black metal post security fence on all lot lines. That's to make sure that anything on a public frontage is that nicer looking fence. If you are curious, go drive up to the Microsoft one, North Highway 5. You'll see the kind of entrance to it has these black metal posts. But if you go drive around the perimeter of it all, you'll see chain link. That was a pretty big, important thing as far as controlling the cost, and then just controlling the access to it was allowing that chain link fence with an uncoiled barbed wire for security on those non-public street frontage lot lines. So we have that identified as allowed. Typically, the city code would not allow basically say any fence that's intended to cause harm isn't allowed. So this is a tweak from that. We typically wouldn't allow any kind of barbed wire or anything else other than that. So that's a bit different. I'm going to jump down to buffer because I think that's a little bit connected to the fence. And really the idea that if you go look at some of these, I think you'll quickly see that the thing you see from the road is the fence and the landscaping and all the stuff right up front. You don't, unless you're like up on Highway 5 and you're looking down at the Microsoft data center or I-35, you don't really see those buildings. So really trying to talk about what that buffer is, what that fence is, so we can make sure it looks nice from the street. So here, requiring it to follow normal buffer requirements of 175F, but then further requiring the front yard setback along all public street frontages have a 50-foot buffer with the planting requirements from our buffer requirement. And then we're saying that those can't be reduced. If you go read our buffer requirements right now, it's like a swath. You can do more distance, less distance, more plantings, less plantings. We're saying you can't do that in the scenario. It's got to be 50 foot. You got to have the same amount of plantings. And then that security fencing can be on the back side of that buffer. Jumping back up, any questions on fence and buffers?
That 12 feet get them what they need for height?
Yes.
Even the Mid-American substations, those kind of precast brick looking panel things they do?
That was when we were
Those you guys use?
when we were vetting all of this stuff. That's where it landed, not from a staff perspective. So I feel confident that that's what works. Parking and loading, complying with 175E, but then we call out some specifics for a data center. One space for 1,000 square feet of office use, which lines up pretty well with our stuff, but then noting that we don't need parking spaces for the actual data center buildings because they're not really housing people, right? And then we have this already in our code, but wanting to spell it out specifically here that there's an ability to reduce parking space requirements when there's evidence can be shown that they're not needed. That's our normal waiver policy, but just being upfront with that here, that we would consider that, because again, we're dealing with a really huge piece of land, likely with a lot of building on it, but not a lot of need for parking when it's in operation. Where it does tend to need a lot of parking is during its construction, and that's where we added the item C, that we want those construction parking lots removed once the thing's up and operational, just to try to control some of the water runoff and some of the water quality issues that large, probably acre plus concrete parking lot's gonna cause when it's no longer needed. So that's parking.
Along
Architect-
the lines of the construction, it seems like when these things go in, the construction process takes a long time.
Yes.
Is there a way that we're addressing that in this?
Regarding the parking or
No,
the whole
just
thing?
generally, like, are we putting any restrictions on them, or is that beyond the scope of?
It's a little bit beyond, but let me jump down, number 14, under our site plan requirements. Usually a site plan is valid for 1 year from its approval here. And then we've always interpreted our rule, like, as long as you're working on the project, that 1 year is kind of a rolling year, right? So it's like, if you ever stopped work, then that's when that year starts. If you happen to go that year without it, then you have to come back to the planning commission and council and ask for them to reapprove it, even if you're doing the same exact thing. In this situation, we added that it's a 2-year time frame, so that rolling 2-year goes, and then if they want to come back and for some reason they stop doing stuff for 2 years, if they bring the same thing back that P and Z and council approved, then it gives staff the ability to approve continuing to use it. So just trying to get some efficiencies there as far as building these things out and understanding that they tend to be 6, 7, 8 year long, 10-year long build outs in a lot of cases. So that's what we've done there. Not as part of this discussion, but something that I'll bring up at my kind of staff update. But as part of this review and then some other things we've had coming to our planning and our reviews is having a discussion at some point about should the city enact any kind of level of administrative approval for certain projects, just to be able to provide an expedited process for somebody that's wanting to come in and build something in town, and should we do that? So we can talk a little bit more about that at the end of the meeting, because that's not germane to this amendment. I think the last thing to really hit on is architectural standards, stating that all M1 uses will use the M1 standards. And then for the data center buildings themselves, that the materials are masonry or concrete tilt-up panels. So we're not having that percentage requirement, but still requiring the variation of color and texture and scale to break up long walls that we require already in our code, and then letting side and rear yard facing facades basically be all the same material instead of varying materials. So again, trying to understand that these internal buildings to the data center, I mean, they're not going to be the most attractive thing no matter what, but they're not the thing that people are driving by. We're not visiting them. We're just trying to keep them functional, but not terrible looking, but also really trying to focus the attention on that buffer area and the things that people would see if they were driving by.
So the M1 architectural standards would allow those metal panels and other things that are typically done in like the Microsoft ones.
Yep.
Okay. Does that M1, that doesn't require the concealed fastener stuff we get into or not?
If I forget the percentage, but if they were going to use a panel as a class 1 material on their building, then it has to be the concealed fastener, but it's a limited percentage of that.
20% of the street facing facade.
Yeah.
Care. My question, if those don't have concealed fasteners?
In the M1 district
Well,
or in the M2 district?
in the data center district.
Well, in the data center, this kind of goes away from anything that our M1 requires in architectural, and it says that your data center building is going to be masonry and or concrete tilt-up panels.
But they're typically not, right? And most data centers are not masonry or tilt-up panels.
This was
It's highly contested. And
no, this was a thing suggested to us that we were fine with.
I guess
Our code would give more flexibility for materials. This language that we've added locks
it's
it
pretty
in.
restrictive because most of those data centers, the only ones that are tilt-up panels that are masonry are the Facebook ones in Des Moines.
Yeah,
All the Microsoft ones, all the Google ones, everybody else is basically pretty much a insulated metal panel type of a thing that goes on the exterior. They're steel framed. There's nothing really too fancy to them.
if that's something we want to take a second look at, we can certainly.
I just,
Would it be
explore those
prohibitive?
options going to council with it, so.
Luke, what's the rationale for, the recommendation?
For including it?
Yeah.
I don't know, other than we, from a staff perspective, didn't have any issue with that language when it was proposed to us.
Okay.
But it
Yep.
says data center uses shall be allowed to utilize the following. Right? So
Yep.
the way I read that, that does not mandate that those be mostly masonry. or
That's true. With that shall be allowed to, it would be you could comply with M1
Comply with M1
or do
this.
A.
Oh,
Oh, but it says shall be.
Shall be.
masonry and or concrete tilt up panel, so it doesn't give you.
Yeah, it's
that
weird because
flexibility.
the sentence before is data center.
it should be
uses-
shall be included.
Shall be allowed to utilize the following requirement.
Included.
Instead of shall be required to utilize.
Like the statement of the, before we get to A, the last sentence of the number 12.
Well, maybe the way to address that is say that everything will comply with M1 and then add a supplementary thing addressing these materials that are not otherwise spelled out in our architectural regs.
Does M1 not allow concrete tilt up?
It does.
Okay,
Yep.
this just allows them to use 100%. Okay, I guess I need to look at M1. I guess there's some more discussion, I guess, in my mind, because I don't think you want to limit yourself to just precast tilt up wall panels. Considering that most of the big data centers we have going on in the metro are not that type of construction. That's typically a much more, well, depends on what kind of panel you use, but it's not always the cheapest option.
Okay. Well, when you guys get around to addressing it, if you want us to, if your motion wants us to look at that more closely, we can do that.
Okay.
Last thing just there is we will be amending our buffer, our actual buffer chapter to add the M2 to the table. So
So the X means it can go up against it.
X means that, so the way the matrix works there is if you're proposing one of the uses that's vertical, then if you have an adjacent zoning district, then the number is the type of buffer you have to do. So if I'm proposing an R1 and I'm adjacent to a commercial district, I have to put a buffer number 1. If I'm proposing a commercial C2 and I'm adjacent to a apartment building R4, I have to do a number 2 buffer, right? So down for where industrial, if someone's proposing an M2 next to a R1 district, they have to do a buffer number 4, and that's our biggest one. It's like 75-foot wide, maybe even 100-foot wide, has so many trees per linear foot and all that stuff. The flip side though is if an M2 district already exists and you want to come in as a single family developer and put something in, now you are required as a single family developer to put in a buffer that meets our buffered standard of a type 1, which is our normal buffer usually sees a 30-foot buffer. So the burden is always on whoever's building first. Or whoever's building against something that's already there, right? So if a data center comes in against undeveloped ground, they're only gonna have buffer requirements if there's something next to it that's already exists, already zoned.
Any other questions from the commission for Luke or staff before we ask for public comment and get the public hearing closed? Would any members of the public like to comment on item number 6 this evening? Hearing nothing, we'll close the public hearing at 6:16 PM. And now, commissioners, we can begin our deliberations on this item. I think that section in paragraph 12, it sounds like it's just the wording that needs tweaked to make sure that introductory sentence doesn't make it compulsory to have it be masonry or concrete, but just to allow them to be beyond that M1, I think is what you were saying.
Yeah, I think it needs to be less, it's a little bit confusing the way that it reads.
Yeah.
It needs to be less restrictive to allow more
Right.
building finished materials, because I don't know that we necessarily care what that finished material is, whether that be a metal panel or whether that be a hollow core or a precast wall panel.
It sounds like the idea was that you could do any of the things allowed in M1 plus these.
Yeah.
If that's what the intent was.
I think
that's-
less restrictive, and I think, if not, we're gonna be amending this within, 5 years, 2 years, something like that. These things are constantly changing.
We definitely, in writing this, tried to keep an eye to being receptive of some of the comments we have, because that's exactly what we didn't want to do. I mean, as I have met with various groups to review this, it's been, hey, tell me really what, if this doesn't work, because I don't want to put this in place and use it, and then 3 years from now, have the first one come in and then be like, oh, guys, we gotta change it because it doesn't work for this one, right? So what we have here had thumbs up from folks, so there wasn't concern about that architectural language, but I certainly don't mind it being less restrictive, so.
Well, I think especially if we're doing a section 1 buffer against residential. I mean, we want it as attractive as possible, though I don't know who would do a 30-foot setback from an M2 and think that they're going to get anybody that's gonna buy that.
A little bit of it is
I
the
mean-
market's gonna control, nobody's gonna buy development ground next to data center.
You might,
You
I
would
mean,
sure,
people in LA have houses under the freeway. So,
That's
I
true.
mean,
It exists in Grimes, but I don't know that that was necessarily thought out and buffered very well when they did theirs up there,
yeah.
so. I like the buffer requirements. I think that they're.
I would like to piggyback on George's comment about the nuclear thing. If we could just, it's under 3G, enclosed energy and fuel storage facilities. If we could just put something in there like not nuclear, just so if it's coming down the line, we don't have to even.
I
deal
will,
with it.
I will find a way to
Thank you.
be overt about that.
every coal and nuclear facility must comply with federal requirements, which have no concept about Iowa.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't, nobody wants that here.
I do.
Uranium storage area.
Yeah.
We're gonna have more
We
issues
did
with
the
people with
future.
solar and wind.
Yeah.
I mean, if we put a turbine or we put solar up here, but we're not developers.
Any other deliberation from the commission? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to, well, it's just a recommendation. So
Yep.
do you need a motion from us? Okay.
Yeah,
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the zoning amendment related to this new M2 technology industry uses category, with the, amendments of paragraph 12 being less restrictive, like we've discussed here.
Just some more clarity.
Yep.
Yeah, and, that paragraph 3G, inclusion of the nuclear.
Okay.
Or. So I'll entertain that motion in a second. If it,
Thompson motion.
Samuelson will second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forrest.
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
Hinders,
I,
Thompson.
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Item number 7 is a request from Hubble Realty Company for approval of the final plat of Holland Point Plat 4. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yep, so the planning area here might look a little bit familiar to some of you. We had the second final plat of Holland Point get approved in 2022 in this area. That plat originally contained a mixture of 4-unit townhomes and some single-family lots. And the applicant here has come back with a revision, basically revising those 4-unit townhome lots into duplex lots and then extending the plat boundary a little bit further. So that second plat that they did kind of stopped right here at what is Bryson Drive. We did a right-of-way vacation, a real small right-of-way vacation a few months ago in conjunction with the prep for this plat. So lots, I believe 43, maybe 44 to 48 would be single family. Lot 1 would be single family. And then the rest of the lots within this thick black line would be duplexes. Formerly, some of these were townhome lots. And then starting at lot 43, going down to 29, those would become duplex lots, again, from townhome lots. And then the same thing happening with lots 19 through 28. In conjunction with those lot lines shifting a little bit, it would also create a lot of record for lot 49, which is where parcel C of the PUD is located. That's related to the next agenda item. One of the things we wanted to do is move that forward so that the site plan could become eligible for approval for that phase of development. So additionally, the only other thing is it creates a street stub to the west, the next phase, which we think would be plat 5 down the road, as it were. And that's all I have for the staff report. Happy to answer any questions.
Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to make any comment on item 7? Any questions or deliberation from the commission? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve the final plat of Holland Point Plat 4.
Emotions.
First and second.
Lori, would you call the roll, please?
Samuelson,
Aye.
Force.
Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Hinders,
Aye.
Thompson,
Hi.
Reginator.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Item number 8 is a request from Hubble Realty Company for approval of the site plan of Callaway. Elliot, continuation of the briefing on this one?
Yep, definitely. So that lot 49 that was in the final plat, Holland Point Plat 4 would be the host site for this site plan. This should look familiar to 4 of you, I think. We had an amendment come through to the PUD in May related to the garage requirements in here that city council received. This concept and the language amending the PUD on garage requirements. We reviewed and approved it, and this concept and site plan, or rather this site plan matches that concept that was submitted as part of that proposal. So it's a combination of townhomes and apartment units. The amendment that we made was related to garage quantity. We went from what would ordinarily be required would be 70% of units requiring garage spaces for the apartments. We decided it would be 1 garage space for every 2 units. And they were able to make that geometry work. So that's reflected in the concept council approved and this site plan. So we received renderings also of how the buildings are going to look. And I think they have a pretty good unified architectural plan. Functional balconies are required on all apartment units in Norwalk. We've been approached about amending that in the past, and council's decided against that. Staff would be in agreement that we all need a functional balcony on apartment buildings. So that's how those look. The clubhouse, similar look to the apartments in terms of material and distribution. We've got garage elevations and also the townhomes match the apartments as well. All of these kind of follow the same general architectural style. Quick update for the P and Z. the state passed a law recently. I don't think we've had to review architecture on residential since they did. The state passed a law preempting us from regulating material use on residential construction of 12 units or less or fewer in a building. So great that we have these. This is the plan. We're only in charge of figuring out compliance for the apartment buildings in this set. So that's an FYI, Senate House File 2388, I believe, if you're interested in that. So, and then here's one of the other townhome renderings as well. And, all the architectural stuff that we can regulate is in compliance with our zoning, and site plan checks all the boxes in the PUD. So happy to answer any questions. Got the applicants with us here tonight.
Just for clarity, since I was one of the people.
Mhm.
So did you say one parking garage per 2 units?
Correct. So ordinarily with an apartment, if it was all apartments, our garage requirement is that you need to have 70% of the units have a garage space available somewhere in the site. Council reviewed and approved a request to reduce that to 50%.
And that's looking at the apartment units only as units. for this one, Right?
So the
'Cause
townhome units the townhome units exceed our off-street parking requirements.
Yeah.
They require 1 garage space in addition to 2. Excuse me, our language is confusing about that. They require 2 off-street parking spaces. One of them must be a garage. It can be both. So they have, I think, 4 parking spaces, driveway plus underground for each of them. So
With the reduction, then were there more street parking?
So they provided more surface parking, and so they have a calculation on the cover sheet here talking about that. So they've got, so our apartment calculation with that modified number would be 180 spaces, and they provide 118. And then there's 116 of the required 116 for townhomes. So they actually exceed that because of the driveways. That's how the math works out.
So technically, the total provided would be just double that 160.
Roughly,
All log up the
yeah.
driveway.
I haven't gone in and counted one by one, but yes, that's.
Would you mind doing that for?
I'll do that tomorrow morning.
Just confirm.
And I don't want to misstate what was discussed at that original meeting, but I think it was driven a lot by lack of, interest in garages from tenants.
We've been hearing from apartment developers that approach us, and a lot of them use them as storage spaces, not as garage spaces. And that has been seen by developers as an impetus to maybe not require so many, or as a reason why a council or a city may not want to require so many garage spots.
Well, we heard from a developer recently on some discussions about apartments that
Mhm.
it's not uncommon for them to offer the garage spaces up independently for lease. And so it's like, that's
Yep.
Yeah.
not an ideal scenario if now your apartments, garages are getting used as mini storage, right? So.
Elliot, I just want to be clear on this, with the reduction of the garage space and that sort of thing. Would the parking space still be within the general curtilage of sort of the apartment space? Are we talking about street parking? And if we're talking about street parking, is there an increase of the intensity of use of the street parking as opposed to where it was before?
No, the space quantity that they'd be required to have is the same.
Okay.
And they're all just internal to the site, and these are all private streets.
Yep.
So these are gonna be accessed off Sayer Drive to the east, which is public, and all of this internally would be private.
So, yeah, so their parking is going to be their problem. Their parking is going to be all of our problems.
Right. Right. I'm sure it won't be a problem, but it'll be their thing to deal with as a property manager.
Tomato, tomato.
Any other questions or deliberation from the commission? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve the site plan of Callaway.
Samuelson, motion.
Second Hinders.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Forrest.
I,
Eden. Hinders.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Samuelson.
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Item number 9 is a request from Diligent HCC LLC for approval of the preliminary plat of Hughes Century Crossing Plat 10. And then we've also got the request for the final plat approval at item 10. Would you like to do these together, Elliot?
Yep, that'll be fine. So what's being proposed here is essentially a minor subdivision. We had them prepare a preliminary plat because there was gonna be some utility modification required with it. Ordinarily, if you do utility work of any sort, that requires a preliminary plat, construction documents, and then final platting occurs. Final platting can happen without doing any modifications to utilities. So that's why there are 2 agenda items here tonight. It's this lot that's south of the retail building between Hughes and Highway 28, south of Gordon. This is located in parcel F of the Hughes Century Crossing Planned Unit Development. And really just talk about the final plat. They indicated to us that the commercial real estate market is really, really looking for acre lots for commercial development. They're splitting this pretty much 50-50. So initially it was 2.06 acres. It falls within the allowed lot size of our subdivision regs and the PUD. That's about all that means dimension wise. Something that our public works director was a little bit concerned about is the number of driveways that are going to go out onto Hughes Drive. Rather than having each one of these get individual lot access, we had them put ingress egress easements straddling the lot lines with the intention that there ultimately be only 2 drive accesses out onto here for what will eventually be 3 lots, because there is a lot to the south of this that is not part of this plat. So we don't have a site plan yet for any of these lots. This is merely a subdivision in preparation for future development. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I believe we've got the project engineer on Zoom with us as well, Mr. James Rodemeyer. So that's all I've got.
Would the applicant's representative like to comment on items number 9 and 10?
No, nothing really to add. Elliot did a great job. I can answer any questions if you have.
Great, thanks, James. Any questions from the commission or deliberation?
Just to quick, that ingress and egress easement to the north. That was included in the lot to the north as well, obviously. We're not introducing something here, right?
That's a good question.
That is new to allow access onto that driveway to the north that is part of the retail.
Yeah,
South
so
that way?
so that's the existing driveway
Yeah.
on that site plan, and so this is accompanying the existence of that driveway for access to lot 1.
Okay, and we can retroactively add that easement to that piece of,
You can add an offsite easement.
okay.
That's not really a P and Z / council thing. That's just a.
Yeah.
It's between but both parties have.
Yeah, well, and they own that lot,
Yeah.
so they'll establish that
Okay,
easement on their own.
okay, so the,
Okay.
all right, so
That'll
Diligent
happen-
still owns that. Okay,
You're right.
never mind.
So the conveyance of that easement will happen after final plats.
Elliot and Luke, I know that you presented that, like, developer said that people are looking for acre size lots. Do you find that that's the case, or are we just taking what they're telling us so they can get this divided?
I mean, I think that's the case. I mean, I think Holly's online too. She could probably speak from economic development side, but I think, the small kind of standalone lot is something we don't have a lot of for somebody to come in and do their own thing on their own space. And with the cost of land, right, trying to be able to, from our side, be efficient with the use of land and get good value on one piece of 1 acre of land versus spreading it across bigger areas. And then I think from the private side too, trying to control that cost of the property as a barrier to entry, I guess. So I don't know, Holly, you got anything to add?
Yeah, you nailed it, Luke. It's really just, nobody wants excess land that they can't really do anything with. They need to make the best use of space, and we want the best use of space too for tax value. And the density, very important to us. So, yep.
Any other questions or deliberation from the commission?
Just one question, does Diligent own both the lots north and south of the proposed subdivide lot here?
They do.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the preliminary plat of Hughes Century Crossing Plat 10.
Moved Hinders.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Eaton.
Aye.
Hinders,
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Samuelson.
Aye.
Forrest.
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. And then we'll entertain a motion to approve the final plat of Hughes Century Crossing Plat 10.
First motion.
Samuelson will second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Hinders,
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Samuelson.
Aye.
Forrest.
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, James. Item number 11, city council update. Anything for us, George?
No.
Any requests for nuclear plants?
Talk about street assessments.
We were talking about the uranium storage here a little bit ago, but don't forget it.
You gotta have more garage space than that.
So, no, everything seems to be going well, so, yeah.
Excuse me. I know Holly joined us tonight. What's your economic development for us, Holly?
Sure. Thanks, Megan. So the first thing I will say is that we are hearing quite a bit about this nuclear power situation. So just kind of giving everybody a heads up, I think it's coming back to us. It will be coming back to us in the future. It's sort of a national situation now. It's not just an Iowa or just a data center situation, that the need for power, and we're finding, that wind and solar is not as nearly efficient as everybody thought and hoped it would be. And so, Mid-American, all the different energy providers, people are starting to really take a look at that. So we may want to speak with some experts in the future and just kind of take a look at it and not maybe completely rule it out just yet, because it is a very efficient and cost-effective way. And the safety is very high if it's done right, of course, but I'll just leave it at that. I think it's coming back around. But with that being said, this is a really good time that the overlay district or the tech and data center districts are being discussed and working forward with that, because we do have quite a bit of interest. We have had a lot of interest in the last 2 years, and we've got a few that are coming closer to a finish line, I would say. And we're still one of the few sites in the state of Iowa that's capable of handling all of the requirements, the criteria that go along with these large data centers, which is very, very good for us and the future of our city and our county. So with that being said, just to give you a little bit of an idea of the value of these data centers and these projects, we're looking at a minimum of about $100 million in new value from just one data center, but really they're all kind of creeping up more to the $500 million in new value. So if they reach that, that's about $18 million in new property taxes per year. So we're pretty excited that we're in the hot seat for one of these. And, the jobs are great because it's not hundreds and hundreds of jobs that are low wages that we can't fill because we don't have enough bodies. These are really high quality jobs, engineering and tech based jobs. So pretty excited about that. And then the a couple of other updates here really quickly. Our department did hire a new economic development technician, and she'll start in a couple of weeks. And she was actually already a part-time employee of the city at the library, very technically gifted and lots of good skills in marketing and tech and IT and all of those things that we need help with. So she'll start in a few weeks. Happy about that. The new chief of mission for the consulate, the Kosovo consulate, was selected by the embassy, and so he's already started. We have an economic trade forum coming up in November at the consulate, if anybody is interested in that. There's all sorts of different business sectors that we're looking at between Norwalk, Iowa, Kosovo, the Balkans, manufacturing, a lot of actually kind of military equipment and arms manufacturing that Norwalk has an opportunity to participate in. So we're pretty interested in that, but more to come. And then as far as just our local businesses and some opening dates coming up here, Mullet still plans to be open by mid-November. Cooper's Central Table and Cocktails plans to be open by Christmas. So we'll have some announcements and promotions coming out about that. The Hilton True Hotel groundbreaking is October 1st at 4 p.m. So hopefully you all receive that invitation. If not, please let us know. We'll make sure that the calendars are sent out to you guys. The outlot in between the Hilton and the Fairway is under contract too with a national retailer, so that's pretty exciting. So as you know, Norwalk Central is just getting built out right and left. It's pretty exciting. And we had the ribbon cuttings for Quickstar and the Fairfield by Marriott back to back last week. So thank you to those who were able to attend that. We will have a grand opening event coming up for the field house, the City State Bank Norwalk field house, in November. So the parks team is just shoring up the dates. So we'll get that sent out as well. And then we're still competing for this $50 million, 400,000 square foot industrial prospect that would go on the remaining 19 acres in the Dunn Industrial Park, because the rest of that 40-acre development has basically been developed or under development. So we have 19 acres left. And this prospect that we're working with, we really, really want it to be a perfect user right in that area, very high value. And they are supposed to let us know by October 1st if we're the site that's selected. We're competing against one other property in the Des Moines metro area, but I think we'll win because we're definitely better. And then the Project West, which is the 300 acres under contract in our Southwest Industrial Corridor area, is still moving forward, doing really, really well there. We're excited about that project. Again, that's one that'll be several hundred millions of dollars of value once that is completed. So very, very positive movement in that direction. And it's also very valuable for the city and the county because it's right in that area that we are investing so much money to extend that development corridor all the way out to I-35. It goes right along with our annexation of the 2,200 acres, the new sewer, everything that we've worked for so long is starting to come together with these prospects. And then the last that I would say here is that with the top 5 projects that we're working on in commercial industrial developments that have legs under them, that are actually moving forward right now, if all of those come through to completion, that's about $500 million in new value for our community, our county, which is about $18 million in new property taxes for all of our entities that need those, so schools, city, county, everybody. So things are in the hopper. I know there's some legislation concerns with, what they're doing with property taxes, especially on the commercial end. So we may have less of that to utilize through the city budget, but we do have quite a bit of new value coming in over the next several years. So Norwalk, I think, is still sitting in a pretty good position. But if anybody has any questions of anything else that we're working on or things you've heard about that I didn't mention, there's several other commercial projects along Highway 28 that just aren't quite far enough along to announce yet, but happy to talk anytime, one-on-one or email, text, call. That's it.
Any questions for Holly? Great. Thanks for the update, Holly. Luke, community development update for us?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, one of the things I wanted to chat a little bit or just get you should explore that more or not, but any thoughts on staff being able to administratively approve certain projects or types or different things? Is that something that P&Z has no, we don't like that. We like what we're doing. we would be good with that for certain types of things.
Can
What-
you give us an example? Of
What you
that?
often see, yep, what you often see is, for certain types of projects that like maybe the city wants to focus on, a city will have what they call like an expedited like development review. One of the challenges I've always had with like trying to think about implementing that is frankly, we have an expedited development review for everything we do. I don't think that there's anything that we do that we don't get through just about as efficiently and quickly as we can. So it's kind of hard at times to say, oh, we're gonna do it even faster without like essentially saying, hey, we're just gonna make you the priority and not review somebody else and do you instead, right? And I don't know that we necessarily want to do that. So really the only thing we could do would be like, let's say the city said, we really want to focus on getting another gas station in town. And I'm saying this facetiously, and that's not real, but like if that was a goal of the city, goal of council, goal of planning commission, you could arguably say, if any gas station came to town and they met 100% of all of the criteria that the city has for a gas station, the staff can just approve that and move forward like it would a site plan for a house, right?
Luke, what's the review on that?
On a gas station,
No, on your administrative decision.
the review of did I do it right or not?
Yes.
Uh,
Is that just at the district court level, or are we talking about something with council?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that more. It probably would be something that would go to council if someone felt like we didn't approve a thing correctly.
Has anything come out recently that would meet that criteria?
Data centers are the thing that's kind of brought it to light where there is some desire to be able to get those to go through quickly. So, again, I don't think our current process is long enough that it's going to hinder any other project, but I do think there's some potential value. At some point, we get big enough where we have enough projects going on that we can't sit here and have 15 site plans on an agenda, right? I don't know if we're probably a long ways away from that, but at some point we need to talk about that. I know from, for example, like City of Des Moines, they are not taking every commercial site plan that they do through their planning commission and council, right? So it's like, at what level do we start talking about that being a thing that we consider? And then what would those things be? What would be the check on me and Elliot approving something? Right.
Right, usually it goes to council and then council's reviewed by a district court.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, but that requires council to sit in a quasi judicial fashion. I'd rather have it go back to the P and Z board.
Sure.
If there's a challenge on that, but we have to, I think we have to, establish criteria.
Yeah.
And then you guys say yes or no on criteria, then it comes back to the P and Z and.
There's a whole lot we have to do to it other than just this. Hey, what do you guys think? Like, I'm okay if you're like, we don't like that idea. That's you're no skin off my back.
I just don't want to see something get stuck in 9, 12, 18, 36 months in development and the developer back out because of a process.
Yep. And I think the development community thinks if they don't have to go through a planning commission council process, that maybe they don't have the worry of it getting shot down for something that they felt like was fine, right? Like, so it's
that to me, it's checks and balances.
Yeah.
At that point.
Well, I'll tell you from where I stand and the conversations I've had with folks already about it, I said, I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but you guys, developers, better understand that I'm going to be a lot more hard-nosed and Elliot's going to be a lot more hard-nosed in our review, right? Because now we're like, we'll work through stuff and we'll give options to council on how to move forward with things and how to amend our codes if something's not working quite right. But if you're going to put that authority in my seat, I'm not giving you that grace anymore to wiggle room through that, right? I'm not okay with you being one parking space off on your parking requirement anymore, right? If it's my call, you're following the code 100% to a T. So
I guess my thought is we might not be there yet
Yeah.
in terms of, because we still have meetings. Sometimes we don't have anything to discuss. And
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like from my perspective anyway, that we are overworked as a commission. So I would like to see more come to us,
Sure.
but, that's.
They will have you do house plan review if you want.
In terms of the scope, maybe I can provide another example. So like, when we had Sunset Crest come through where El Dorado is and Jimmy John's. So they came to me one day, brand new and doing site plan review back in 2018. And said, hey, Elliot, can we modify our parking lot islands? And technically, that should have gone through P and Z and council, right? I said, yeah, go ahead, because it seemed like that would be a waste of time. I think that's an example of something that maybe you guys don't need to see if it's a real small, technically site plan amendment, right?
Well, not only for our sake, but in that instance, for their sake. I mean, they don't need to wait for
Yeah,
time.
they gotta wait 2.5 weeks to just go pour some concrete.
And that may be a way
That
to-
seems ridiculous.
Maybe that's a way to dip the toe in it a little bit is.
And I
on
guess I still see
micro-
P and Z as being the longitudinal factor, you know, over a longer period of time than, I'm sure George will serve on council for another 10 years or something ridiculous like that. But I mean, P and Z can be the steady hand there, but I don't mind adjustments from experts that are on staff. I mean, just like you said, the parking and
So
things.
like, that's one project example, and maybe that is a good starting point, and maybe it just becomes a P and Z approval. And
Yeah.
council just isn't involved.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Or maybe, from this point, you all can start tracking that somehow of things you would like to see included in that category.
Yeah, we could
So,
probably even go back to
Us gauge
last.
what's coming up.
And also, I think if you have just spot approval from you guys, it's probably less likely that there's going to be an appeal on,
Sure.
you know, people are just gonna deal with how their parking lot's set up. Whereas if you're saying, yes, no, you can have this here, you can have that there. That's money in and out of the bank. I mean, there's gonna be a writ on that one.
And Luke, I didn't mean to hijack your discussion item,
That's
but I guess maybe one that might be a question mark would be Jones Dental's expansion.
Sure.
They had plenty of room within their building setbacks to add that additional tenant space. If they bring us a site plan amendment for that building that meets, all the architectural matches, all the footprint stuff is in, building plans are good. I think that would be like an example of a project. I would wonder if you guys felt it was worth your time to,
Or the city state bank extensions.
or the city state bank, that's a
Same
pressure
idea.
one, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I think the rigor that you guys have been going through, is probably the differentiator of why projects get done right.
Mhm.
Consistency of quality of things that you want as you build out the longer term plan. But the other thing I think is like everything sets a precedence, right? And so when you do it for one, you gotta do it for another. And so I think it just forces some of these companies to continue to make sure they have rigor in their planning. And when things change, I think we meet every 2 weeks, really what's gonna happen within the 2-week time frame that needs to be decided that can't wait
Right.
a couple days. And so, I don't know, I mean, process wise and just kind of setting precedents, especially in a community that's growing and growing fast now. These kinds of things that may take long, I think is what's going to 10 years from now say, we're glad we did.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's a developer-based urgency that is not accurate or, from the city side.
I guess as community representatives, I think it's a good idea that we have input in the overlay there, what a project is. I think as experts in the field, Elliot, Luke, I think it's better that you guys deal with the details than we deal with the details.
Sure.
As long as we have that overall approval and then you deal with the details afterwards. I don't have a overall problem with that. I don't think developers would have a problem with that.
I think that's a good point, Howard. Right now it might seem like the right solution, but long-term, I think it's better for us to
Yeah.
have more oversight versus less.
okay.
Plus we could be the bad guy.
Yeah, it's not.
And like you said, right now, I don't think it's necessary, but I think
Right.
it's, you know, if we're back in here 2-5 years, 10.
I do
whatever.
think there's value though, because you guys gave some good examples of starting to track those kinds of things though.
Yeah,
Because
I like
in
that
maybe
idea.
2 months, you say, hey, we've had these 20 things that came up, we may start to create some window where that makes sense, right? But
Mhm.
you guys are in these seats. Now what happens maybe 5 years from now, you're not the person that we trust to do those kinds of, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah, I think-
precedents you gotta set.
If it is ever, you know, you keep talking about setting a precedence, I think it needs to be well defined as to what, where you draw that line.
Right.
Because again, if
That's
somebody
the
takes
thing.
over, if it's one developer versus the other, it needs to be pretty black and white in terms of what you guys
People
can
think they
do.
can influence it by fake,
Yeah.
I mean, it just opens up doors to that.
Hey, they've been a really good partner for us, maybe we can.
Yeah.
you know,
And maybe,
wanna
and
stay
maybe
away from that.
your individualized determination can be, you know, challenged at, you know, for those super attractive people on the Board of Adjustment. I only served on the Board of Adjustment for 13 years. I don't know why. You know, maybe something like that. I mean, but I don't think that needs to come back to P and Z because I think we're an overlay.
Sure. Okay, appreciate all that thoughtful discussion. That was good. So that gives us some stuff to talk about internally some more, and I like the idea of tracking it, so I think we'll start doing that, maybe even go back at the past agenda to see what we think it would fit that category. Just quick 2 other things. We are currently in the process of hiring an admin assistant that will be part community development, permitting, front desk type stuff. And then now with the new remodel, will also be the kind of city hall front office person, doing utility billing and those types of things. So that person will be a community development staff person, but be taking on some of those water billing, and just general city hall questions as well. And as you walked in, you saw we got a lot of work going on in here and stuff. So if you want to poke your head around, I'm happy to kind of walk you through what's what in that area when we're done with the meeting if you want. So, and then Elliot, you wanted to chat a little bit about meeting times.
So 2 questions. Who can do October 7th for the next P and Z? That is a quorum. Is anyone opposed to moving the meeting?
Me, but I'm fine to be voted out. I will conduct myself better. I gotta do a teaching for a thing, so.
So sorry to do that to you, Brent.
It's okay. I'm making a lot of money off of it, so.
So let's plan on that then. So October 7th, ignore the next 2 slides that are about to come up in here. I do, obviously, I have an agenda item. We may have a second, just kind of depends on how schedules line up for other folks. I do want to bring up something really quick. Now
So just to clarify, then we'll meet again on the 28th, the
Yes.
7th and the
Yep.
28th.
Yep, so ordinarily we'd get a 2-week break now, we'll have that 2-week break following October 7th.
Good.
The Hughes Plat 10 minor subdivision. I just want to bring something to you guys' attention. I've probably mentioned things like this before, but it's something I find a little bit scary. It is becoming spooky season, and I wish that aerial imagery was a little more up to date. We had a pre-app meeting. They got the hamster wheel rolling on this. And I just want to point out, okay, this is Scooter's lot, right? This lot is just shy of 1 acre. That's an 800 square foot building. This is 3,300 square foot lot with an 800 square foot building. Okay, that's 3.8% of the lot area. That math is not perfect, but you get my drift. We did a pre-app meeting just to the south of, for this lot, just to the south of the minor subdivision that was under consideration tonight. That site plan that we saw, again, you know, all of our clients are good people, real friendly, understanding, listening to us walk them through all the site plan details and everything we need. That lot is just about 1 acre. They proposed a 2,400 square foot bank building or financial institution. Don't know the name of them. But that's, you know, about 5% of the lot area. And when we start talking about how to use land efficiently and wisely, We understand that national brands are looking for a certain size of lot for their product. But I think it's really important to be thoughtful about how land can be used efficiently, because that same site plan, 50% of it was paving. So we're still talking about creating a lot of, hard surface, potentially runoff related issues. Obviously it's, cars first, people second in an environment like that. I think that's worth pondering as we move forward with minor subdivisions like this, that we had tonight, and other projects elsewhere in town. So I just wanted to say something about that as an avid patroller of Ingersoll Avenue, and I'll cede my time. That's all I have.
Thanks, Elliot.
Just don't let him in.
This isn't on the agenda, but I wanted to officially welcome Brent. Thank you for joining us and for all your thoughtful comments tonight. Thanks for being part of the commission. Our next meeting is going to be October 7th at 5:45 p.m. and I will entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned at 7:03. Everyone, thanks for joining us, Holly.
Thank you, guys.